Hello, and welcome back to Magical Moments. I have with me Elizabeth. I met her in a Facebook group. We were looking for like-minded people in the area. You know, I moved from New York and I am in South Carolina. So when she said that she was also in South Carolina, I got really excited and I was like, let's connect. And we've kind of just really hit it off, and it makes me excited. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and all of the great things that she does. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your podcast, first and foremost. But I'm Elizabeth. I do many things, but the things that I do love, I am a yoga instructor, a meditation instructor, a certified personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and a trauma-informed yoga instructor also, amongst being a mom to three and working a full-time job.
Oh my
Like
goodness.
busy.
So busy, but that's the way it goes. That's the
That's
way
right.
it goes. I'm also a mom. I have a full-time job. I do all of the things. I'm also a meditation instructor. So, it's we do all the things. We're creative beings who do a lot, and it's okay.
That's right.
But I'm just so excited to have you here, especially to talk about informed yoga and trauma informed yoga, because I'm trying to gear a lot of my content towards releasing and healing traumas. And that's kind of new for this year, 2023, but I took a break shortly to kind of restructure my podcast and my content. And I really am focused on releasing and healing subconscious and conscious traumas. And I came across trauma informed yoga, and I was like, this is perfect. It fits in. And then I met you and I'm like, look at God. Just look at all the pieces falling in together, right?
That's right.
So, what drew you towards trauma informed yoga?
So my journey with yoga started during COVID, actually. I have a really good friend who does yoga and was never really interested in it. And then during COVID, everybody was just home. And I was like, you know what? Let me just try to do some yoga. So I did it. And the more I got into it and the more I studied it, because something about me is I like to know what I'm getting into when I get into something. So I have to do a deep dive into things. So I studied all the history of yoga and everything. And I was like, wow, it's more like a spiritual practice, like within yourself. And basically, it's not about like coming from that athletic background and personal training where everything is where it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to be, and this placement here and this placement here. Yoga just kind of flows, and it how you show up on your mat is how you show up in real life, and it all just kind of works itself out. So during COVID, was in a really bad depression and decided to do some yoga, fell in love with it. And that's where it just kind of grew. I ended up, after long thoughts, decided to go to yoga teacher training and fell even more and more in love with yoga and the foundations of yoga and how it is just really self-care and self-love. And that's what I do, is self-care and self-love. So that's kind of how it all started. With trauma informed yoga, I am someone who suffers from mental health issues, illnesses, and I'm not afraid to talk about it because I could talk about till we're blue in the face. But I feel like for me, someone who has struggles with depression, anxiety, PTSD, all the traumas. Trauma informed yoga is a place where I felt safe, and so I teach it in the safe way. It's all about gearing towards people where they don't have triggers. So, like, if you're depressed or you have anxiety or other trauma, sexual abuse, you just you just teach in that safe space. And for me, I was looking for something to feel safe, to make me feel safe, and that's what I fell in love with it. And I felt like that was just meant for me. That was just my calling. If I can help myself through yoga and healing, why can I not help somebody else through the same thing?
I love that. That's kind of what drew me to focus on healing and releasing traumas, because I also went through a very dark period. And I don't like to say I'm suffering. I like to say I lived through, a period, because I don't want to bring suffering into my life. I'm not suffering. I'm living through it. We all have our moments. Life is cyclical. So I just had my moment. And I went through, a difficult period. And just a lot of things came up from my past. And I've been healing from it and using different techniques to heal from that trauma. And I really wish that anyone, would have given me some tools to work with it a long time ago. So why can't I be that person, So I'm just trying to gather all the tools in my little toolbox and then bring it to other people and say, hey, let's try, trauma-informed yoga. Let's try breath work. Let's try the meditation. Let's try Reiki. Just all of these different tools to help you heal and release it and move forward and live your life. And obviously it's not going to take, 2 days. It's something you have to constantly do. But huh?
I said it's definitely a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. And I mean, healing is an ongoing process. I don't really truly believe that anyone is fully healed from anything. You have to keep working on it, but you can get to a point where things no longer trigger you and you're comfortable and, you live your life in peace. And I'm hoping that by focusing on the tools that can help other people, they'll find it useful and they'll use it for themselves. But anyway, off my soapbox. So can you, and you pretty much did that in your last answer, but just a little bit more, explain the difference between trauma-informed yoga and some of the other different types of yoga. I think I tried like comedic yoga before. I am not a yoga expert. I'm like the very beginner level of yoga. So just explain a little bit.
So I, in yoga teacher training, was trained as a vinyasa instructor. And vinyasa yoga is one breath, one movement. So we follow our breath with our movement. And so it's more of a fast-paced yoga. You're constantly flowing. And that's what I like. That's what kind of drew me into my first yoga session was vinyasa. And I was like, oh gosh, this is great, So I'm very familiar with vinyasa. I know that there's yin yoga. There's all different forms of yoga that are for different, that cover different aspects of yoga. I know yin is more relaxation. There's, of course, trauma-informed yoga. And then there's yoga therapy, which is a greater extension of the trauma-informed yoga, which covers everything. In more detail than trauma-informed yoga instructors cover. So I only can speak really for surely what I know about vinyasa because I was just trained in that way.
That sounds about right. From my very limited knowledge and expertise, I swear I've only taken like a couple of yoga classes at like hot yoga or something. And then I looked up some videos on YouTube for comedic yoga because I really like that movement. But from what I have done in my limited experience, I do notice the difference between the vinyasa and like the comedic and then the trauma informed. And I am pulled more towards the trauma informed at this moment. But do you think that maybe in different periods of your life, maybe you're drawn towards one aspect of yoga versus another, or is it something that will always stay with you?
I think that it's something that will always stay with me. I know because there is different limbs of yoga and the asanas, which are the poses, is just one limb of yoga. And then you have your breath work, your pranayama. So I, for a very long time, was really focused on my breathing. I have anxiety. So for me, breathing and breath work and controlling my breath is very, very important. I even try to teach my kids, to breathe, just, if you're overwhelmed or just frustrated, just breathe. But that was a part of my life for a great deal. Well, where I didn't do daily asanas. I didn't practice on the mat every single day. I only did breath work and meditation just because at that point in my life, that's what I needed. And just like with the healing journey, your yoga can also change up itself too and presents itself in different forms and where you need it in your life. And so I'm really now just getting back into the asana practice because I feel like that part of the breath work and the meditation was what I needed for that 6 to 9 months of my life. So now I can incorporate it, all of it all together into one. So I don't think it will ever leave my life. I think it's something that's a part of my daily life. I try to live in a yogic way, and that's really how you should live. So not only do I practice, but I also try to live very yogically, if that makes sense. So it's always going to be a part of me.
So it's like a lifestyle.
It is. It
It's like a
is.
lifestyle.
It is. Most definitely a definite lifestyle.
Do you have any tips or suggestions for people like myself who are just like beginners at yoga? Kind of just, go on YouTube and find a yoga for beginners. Do you have any tips or tricks for us?
Yeah. For me, when I first started, my really good friend told me, take several classes, go start off, maybe do an online class or do something on YouTube or do a one-on-one. You have to feel comfortable. And for me, I was never comfortable because I'm like, well, what if I'm doing it wrong? Well, really, there is no wrong way to do yoga, right? That's what we know now. But I would say if you're a beginner, just start maybe with a one-on-one session with somebody where you can ask the question that you need to ask without feeling embarrassed, or that person can help you maybe with body placement if you're comfortable, or just that intimate setting where you can feel more relaxed and open and not under pressure of somebody's looking at me or are they judging me or whatever. I would say just get on the mat, find a good instructor to teach you, and go from there. But definitely don't be afraid to start.
That's great advice. Coming from someone who's more plus size, I did, and it's not just me, because I've heard from other people where they would go take a yoga class and they would feel almost kind of body shamed. One instructor actually told someone to go to the back because they were a distraction for other people. And the weird part is she herself is a yoga instructor.
Wow.
She does yoga. So it's like, how am I a distraction? I know what I'm doing. I'm doing everything correctly. If people are, I guess, mesmerized by how my big body moves, then that's on them. That's not on me. And I should not be forced to move to the back of the room because of that. So yes, definitely finding a good instructor, I think, is a good tip. So thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
But I think that's all the questions I have, besides the question I ask all of my guests. What does a magical moment look like for you?
So I have debated on this question for so long, but really a magical moment is, I would have to say, for me would be, so I am a very creative person, and I feel like when I create something, and I always like to ask people like, what do you think? And everyone's like, oh my God, it's beautiful. And I'm like, okay, it makes me feel good. It's like I know what I'm doing is beautiful. And that's magical for me. The ability to create something that is not only going to help somebody, but also get them excited to do it. I create a lot of self-care products. With a lot of self-love involved, of course. So when someone gets excited about a candle or a wax nail, it's like, I did that and I'm able to help you, whether it's through aromatherapy or or affirmations or whatever. I'm able to help you, and that is a very magical thing.
I love it. I love it. So I did ask you to show us a few yoga moves, some trauma-informed moves that the people can do at home. I know you don't have the space at the moment, so can you just walk us through some? And then I think, once I put the video together, I will put some pictures up above, up here. See the pictures? So you walk us through some moves that we can do to help release some trauma.
Yes, for sure. So we all know that trauma from my training is stored in our waist, in our hips, in our heart actually. So a lot of heart opener poses, and a lot of hip openers. So like pigeon pose, deep, really deep stretching poses are really good, and a lot of grounding poses, because with people that have trauma in their life, we need to feel safe and we need to feel grounded. So I'm always putting in a warrior pose, which is grounding, Tadasana, which is a standing pose, anything where I am physically grounding, where even an easy pose where I'm just sitting in a meditation pose where I can physically plant my hands down to the mat, where I can feel safe and I know that there's nothing around me that's going to hurt me, you know, but also releasing in our hips is also a big one. And you can do that with warrior one or warrior two, pigeon pose, like I said earlier. Really a lot, really anything involving the hips, but also heart openers like camel pose. Those are very good ones. Low lunge in a open arms position is very good as well. Just anything to kind of release and open. And for me, one of my favorites is in Tadasana. It's prayer. It's a prayer pose, and I will always do that because once again, I need to feel grounded and I need to feel safe. And that's a time for me if I'm overwhelmed or stimulated in a certain way where I feel uncomfortable, I can just bring it back to me and bring it back to my heart center where I know that I'll feel safe as well. So
Awesome. All right. I'll have a few, like I said, I'll have a few pictures up above once this is done so that people can review them and practice if they need to, do some poses, and hopefully it helps someone out there. Do you have any affirmations that you would like to leave us with?
So I am very big on affirmations. My daily affirmations and my practice and my journey with affirmations are based on my mental health situation now, and my healing now. So there's things I tell myself daily besides the basic I am beautiful, you know, I am divine, but I am a child of God and I am protected. I know that God's not going to let anything hurt me or harm me. Even in my darkest, I'm still am light, you know, I'm still radiant, but I am worthy. I am selfless. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am divine. I am a goddess. Those are just some of the things that I just say to myself basically every single day. I have my bathroom mirror is full of like self-love quotes and affirmations. And even in my kids' room, I have that placed up for them because I feel like positive self-talk is very important, especially for our children. And I have a son, and being that he's a little Black boy, it's very important to me that he knows that he is a king. You know, he's a future Black king out here. You're a great man. You're going to be a great man someday. And he needs to know that he's smart and he's intelligent, because we often don't hear that a lot, especially for our Black boys and our Black men. So I make sure that each of my children have affirmations that they can recite every single day, and they can see the quotes every single day. And we're always constantly talking about not talking negative, because negative words are very powerful to our mind. So we always recite affirmations every single day. She's over here smiling because she knows.
I love it. I'm the same way with my son. I tell him every day how handsome he is. I tell him every day how smart he is. I make sure he knows that his emotions matter, because a lot of things, especially with, you know, Black men, it's like, oh, you can't show emotion. No, show your emotions. Your emotions are fine. Your emotions make you you. Please don't hide it. That's another thing that causes trauma, is having to stuff down your emotions. And I don't think people realize that that's the case. You know, sometimes they're like, oh, well, I didn't go through this huge event. Well, no, but you were taught to stuff down your emotions. You were taught, you know, men don't cry. And now you don't know how to work through your emotions and deal with your feelings. That is traumatic.
Right. And I feel like that's a lot in our Black community, is where we don't talk about anything. important as far as like mental health. Like that's one thing that it's a hush hush conversation we don't like to talk about. So for me, I feel like I'm different because I will sing it to the top of my lungs all day because I have no shame, because I feel like maybe me talking about my childhood trauma or my traumas, whatever I've gone through, my depression, my anxiety, whatever I have gone through, may help somebody. And I feel like in our community, we need to know that it's okay. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to see a therapist. It's okay to talk to a buddy about stuff. It's okay to cry. Like you said, it's okay to do all that. But we don't really do that as a whole. And I feel like hopefully one day we can get to that point where we can be open with ourselves and our mental health, because,
Yeah.
you know, we're
I
suffering.
agree. No, I agree. Or if we do speak about it, it's just pray about it, which is
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Prayer is great, but that's not the
yeah,
only thing that you should do.
right.
You should definitely talk to a therapist, someone you trust,
Hmm.
do things to improve your mental health.
Right. We always should do things to improve our mental health. I know I'm very big on walking and like outdoor nature. I love nature. I'm like drawn to the water. That's just me.
Me too.
But it's funny is that my therapist is like, why don't you get outside and spend some time walking? And I'm like, but I do that already. And she's like, okay, well that's very good. That's very good for your mental health. You know, you get all that in. I was like, oh, so I'm actually doing something that's, not only is it beneficial for my body, my physical body, but it's also good for my mind and for my brain. And so yeah, we just have to yeah,
Yeah.
we just
I
really,
always
really
tell people, I love nature, but nature is not that fond of me because I have so many allergies. I'm allergic to like all the trees and all the
oh
grass,
no. And you
but
live in South Carolina. You should.
to everything. I'm allergic to everything. All
No,
the animals. I love animals. I'm allergic to them all, except for
no.
horses. So I guess that'll be my pet, a horse.
There you
Uh,
go.
but I still get out there, I haven't in a while because it's been freezing. And
Yes.
then I've been a little under the weather, but I get out in the morning and I take a walk for about an hour and just clear my mind, meditate because my mind keeps going.
Oof.
So I'm one of those people where my mind is constantly on go. And a lot of people think that meditation is just sitting there with your eyes closed and breathing. And while that can be helpful, if your mind is always going, you kind of need to do some movement, which can be dance, which can be walking. So I walk and I do to quiet my mind, and then I do my sit still and meditate. But I have to get
Have you
back
ever
to.
done a walking meditation before?
Mhm.
You have? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I love my walking meditations. It's very soothing,
yeah.
and it
I,
helps keep my mind focused because I'm like, okay, like pay attention to your surroundings as well as your breath. So instead of my mind thinking about, what work I have to do or what I'm going to cook for dinner or, whatever, I'm present in the moment and I'm listening to the birds and I'm, listening to my breath. And so it's very helpful, the movement.
yeah. Mm, that's beautiful. That really is beautiful. Wow.
But that is it for this episode. And I thank you so much for coming on. I will have all of your information in a description box. She has these beautiful candles. It's not out yet, but follow her socials, and make sure that you get some of this great, great product. She's a beautiful, beautiful soul. And I'm so glad we met.
Oh,
And I
me too.
can't wait to do more things together.
I am so excited.
That is
I think
it.
the universe brought us together for every good reason. I love it.
And as always, my listeners, start with gratitude, end with love, and please find your magical moment. And I'll see you next time.